I finally finished the French heavy cruiser Battlecruiser missions, and I got myself the Cherbourg, the tier 8. And I gotta be honest, I thought these ships were gonna be bad, but they're not. At least this tier 8 is pretty amazing. The ship has an extremely long reload though, which takes a while to get used to. But this reload booster makes it reasonably playable. And for tier 8, having these accurate, hard-hitting guns is really nice. So they're 305mm guns, I believe, and you have 8 of them. And they're all in the front of the ship, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. If we're pushing into tier 6s and 7s, well, it's a very good thing. Against tier 10s, it's been a little bit rougher, but I have had some really good games into tier 10 as well. I'll be showing those in a little bit, but this one is my very first game in the Cherbourg, and it went really well. This one's going to go right to time, the end, right? 0-0 on the clock, so I was pretty happy with this result, all things considered. As for the ship, it's been really fun. It's fast, it's maneuverable, the guns hit reasonably hard, assuming you're not just going to overpen, and that's what I want in a ship. The ability to reposition, get on people's flanks, and hit pretty hard. Unfortunately, yeah, overpens on light cruisers at close range are still a thing for this ship, but it's been surprisingly a lot more fun than I thought. In this video though, I actually have propulsion mod, which I have later swapped for rudder shift. Because the turning radius is so good on this ship, its ability to dodge with speed boost, be relatively quick, and then use its rudder is really powerful. And I've been really having a good time with it. And it's funny because when I saw these things on paper, they looked like they'd be awful. But I've been having a ton of fun with this ship. I just hope that as we move up the tiers to the tier 9 and the tier 10 especially, that it will continue. Part of the fun, I think, is that it's got 8 guns all mounted in the front of a maneuverable ship. Having 9 guns on the tier 10 in 3 turrets, where I'm going to have to show more broadside, especially when bow in to get all those guns off, might be a bit rougher. I don't know. We'll see when I get there. But as for the tier 8, the ship is amazing, and I'm probably going to end up keeping it. Hippers are notoriously hard to citadel, but no problem here. 15k into his side. Of course, the German cruisers have a bit of turtleback, enough to, well, affect cruiser AP at least. And usually it just overpens if you're a battleship, but we managed to punish them there. This ship, of course, is best on a flank, so when the enemy team is pushing into us, I'm still trying to make use of the AP. I think the reload is just a little bit too long to make the HE all that useful on anything other than destroyers for the most part. And the fire chance is kind of just abysmally low. I believe it's in that 17% range. It is not good, but at least the AP is quite solid. And I overall don't really want to play this ship at close range, so the fact that the AP has decent enough range and pretty decent arcs as well is quite nice. The secondaries do have improved accuracy for what it's worth, but I don't really want to be brawling in this ship, that's for sure. The armor is just not there. It has a 30mm deck, but the sides are, I believe, 25. They might be 27. It's, well, enough to bounce the lower tier battleships, but as soon as I get into higher tiers, I'm not bouncing anything, right? So we don't want to be brawling in it. It is nice if you run into a destroyer at close range, you can swing out and get some secondaries on them. That's about it, I would say. Of course, my team is losing the 1, 2, 3 lines here, and that's a bit of a problem. I'm trying to stay here to help, but there's really not much I can do here since I can't be the one spotting the DD. And if these battleships decide to push bow into me, there's really not much I can do. And while I'm going to stay here as long as I can, it's very nice to know that I have the speed boost and decent concealment. It's in that 12km range to get away. I'm not fully committed into this flank. I can always get away. Notice my team in the top right corner of the map. I have no clue what they're doing up there. I really don't recommend playing like this, but if your team does, the goal is to slow down the enemy's push and eventually try and help them out by pushing their flank for them. That's what we're going to do in this one. My team has fully collapsed on the 1, 2, 3 lines here, and I just need to get away. And that's one of the things that shocked me the most about this ship, is its ability to reposition. It's very fast, and this concealment is more than good enough to reposition. I've had several games that have gone to the late game like this where we've lost a flank, and I've been able to reposition to the opposite flank, constantly getting on people's broadsides and making this ship work. So while I don't think it's going to be the best tier 8 cruiser in the world, its ability to reposition, tank, and deal reasonably devastating AP salvos is quite unique, honestly. Having a heal at tier 8 is a huge benefit. Most of the time, cruisers at tier 8 obviously aren't having heals, and it really limits them and their ability to play aggressive, or even make a couple mistakes and still come back into the game. That's one of the things that I really dislike about low tier cruisers is the lack of healing. I like to play aggressive, and oftentimes that doesn't work out so well for me, but at least with a heal, I can recover some of that HP I lost and hopefully get back into those games. We're in a massive crossfire here, as you can see. Losing HP is probably going to happen, especially if this Hipper ended up shooting armor piercing at us. But with this Cherbourg in front of us and a whole bunch of battleships behind us, this is really not a good position for a cruiser to be in. The enemy team has 3 of the 4 caps, and the last 4th cap we don't even have control over. This is not looking good. But we do have a bit of hope here because our team is finally starting to push down the 8, 9, 10 lines, and I really want to join them in this. I would try to go dark here, but I'm thinking that the Kitakaze is just chasing me, so that's why I'm really not trying to go dark at all. I also have a reasonable amount of HP left and a few heals, so I may as well try and get a bit of damage in while I can. But it's really not doing a whole lot, since the armor piercing, of course, is going to bounce and shatter a lot off of these angled ships. At this point, we really need to get aggressive. We're ahead on points somehow. That's mainly down to our team doing a decent job of finishing off enemy ships, but we have to get into the capture zones quickly. Otherwise, yeah, we're going to lose this game very fast. So I'm pushing as hard as I can to get into the decap here and hopefully make it around this corner to provide an off angle for the enemy battleships that are inevitably going to be pushing into the C cap. I also want to try and help my DD on this Kitakaze, but yeah, the turret traverse is a bit of an issue. As long as you're thinking ahead and planning ahead, maybe you're used to battleships, especially something like a Yamato, these turrets will feel fine. But if you're used to light cruisers or even certain heavy cruisers, yeah, the turret traverse is pretty slow, and that's only going to get worse as we get into high tier and we do things like slot a reload mod, which reduces our turret traverse even further. Sorry, makes our turret traverse worse by increasing our reload. Unfortunately, we got stuck on the island for a second, but I managed to get myself unstuck, and we're going to go into the cap now. Again, I'm trying to catch off angles, trying to catch broadsides in this ship. I had a salvo in one game where I did 20k to a Christopher Colombo at around 15 kilometers. If all these shells hit and full pen, they're pretty nasty. So now that we've captured the decap, and well, fortunately our friendly destroyer is doing a bit of back capping. Yeah, the enemy's about to get control of A again, and they got C. We're gonna take out the Cherbourg though on the enemy team, which is great, because now we've opened up this flank to be pushed, and I'm gonna push very aggressively towards C. I have enough health, and I think that by pushing bow into a lot of these ships, I might be able to catch them off guard if they're trying to aggressively defend the C cap. I don't really use my reload boosters quite as efficiently as I should have this game. That's on me, but as I play this ship and this class enough, I'm going to get a little bit better at that. That's really the interesting thing, is when to use these reload boosters. They give you a reasonable cruiser reload for one salvo. That's basically it. Otherwise, you're at a battleship level reload. But it's really, really useful to have these reload boosters, since it's more than enough to catch other cruisers off guard and get that really punishing salvo in. Even against battleships, these guns are more than enough to Citadel battleships at closer ranges. I'm really not wanting to use my guns on angled ships though, so while I'm going to shoot at this Mogami, yeah, it's really not going to do a whole lot of damage. I'm more focused on the C cap at this point, especially since our Lenin is also pushing in. This kind of speed and flanking ability is a lot of fun. If you're someone who can understand map positions and map awareness, I think you'll probably really enjoy this line. If you're someone who's not great at knowing how to flank and knowing where to go based on the enemy team setup, I think this line is going to be very challenging and not a lot of fun, especially since it's low DPM and relatively poor HE. So if you find yourself just kiting away from a bunch of bow-in enemy ships, the ship is really going to be bad, and I think that probably will translate for the whole line. And I'd probably avoid it then, but if you're good at that flanking roll, this is a ton of fun. There's some seriously punishing salvos that you can get. We're already up to 106k damage, and I gotta remind you, this is a tier 8 cruiser. This is not tier 9 or tier 10, this is tier 8. Competing against, well, I mean, I shouldn't say it, but it's competing against ships like Harbin. Yeah, it's safe to say I very much prefer the Cherbourg over something like the Harbin. That's probably the weakest example I could think of, or one of them, but still, it's a really good ship in comparison to that. I don't think it's the best tier 8 cruiser though. I would certainly prefer something with a little more reload, a little more flexibility with the HE, maybe even something with a radar to impact the game. The other thing you should notice is the fire duration. Yeah, it's very, very, very long fire duration. 60 seconds. Yeah, that was hurt. And since you are a cruiser, you actually can't slot fire prevention. So it really makes it difficult to tank a lot of HE. So I'm really not wanting to play here for very long. I also really want to stay in the C cap, but I'm trying to speed juke this Mogami. It's really not working out all that well. He gets a double fire. But I do go dark because we do have that ability to decide if we want to shoot again and have our detection bloom out or not. That's the nice thing about having a reload over 20 seconds. You're always waiting for that reload anyway. And every time you shoot, you have this decision to make. Do you want to get yourself permanently spotted again or not? And, well, that's really not a great reason to have a long reload. It's much better to have a shorter reload. It is a small benefit, and it certainly helps us here. So reversing back into the C cap here, the gun angles backwards are decent, but not enough that we're going to prevent a ton of damage, for example. So I'm going to try and get away from this Amagi as quickly as I can. And yeah, we citadeled an Amagi at, well, 10-ish kilometer range. That's a pretty solid result. And I used my last reload booster and managed to finish him off. Fortunately, he didn't even aim for me, which I got very lucky there. I think he probably should have gone for me since I'm the one in the cap and the one closest to the cap, and they're about to catch us on points. But I'm going to reverse back in, and, well, even with without speed boost, you can see how bad the acceleration is. So this is prop mod even. It's really slow on the acceleration, but once it gets going, it's quite quick. So now we need to talk about the end game. This ship is decent. It's something that I'm going to play a lot more. I'll give you a more thought out perspective, but this game is coming down to the wire. A minute 40 left on the clock. The enemy team is up on points and we're even on caps. So we need to take out this Leon without losing anyone. If anyone dies, we're just guaranteed done for this game. And yeah, we managed to take him out and bounce his salvo. That's the fortunate thing about this armor against lower tiers. So now that we're up on points and caps are equal, we should be all right to win this game. Just to make sure though, I got myself into the A cap to guarantee this victory. 7 seconds on the timer. We have 4 kills. Last salvo, can we get it? 1 second left, 0 on the timer. And we get ourselves a Kraken. First game in the Cherbourg was a absolutely epic carry with a Kraken. Dreadnought, I even got a close quarters expert, like, unbelievable. This is not what I can expect, or you should be expecting either, out of the Cherbourg, but it happened, and I'm pretty happy about it. As for the setup that I've started with, it's a pretty basic cruiser commander, I would say. I am running gun feeder just in case I need to swap for a destroyer that wants to YOLO me, but honestly, I might be better served by something like Grease the Gears. We'll see, but that's something that could be improved here. You'll notice that in the video, if I'm full turning, my turrets actually can't quite keep up, which is majorly annoying and would be helped out by Grease the Gears. But everything else is pretty standard, outside of maybe heavy AP shells. The reason for this is it's a 5% damage upgrade. Since I'm only really using the armor piercing, that's 5% extra damage that we can get. And yeah, as you can see, the HE has decent alpha, just over 4,000, but yeah, only 17% fire chance, and that's not great, especially considering the reload on these guns. 28 seconds, pretty rough, but this cruiser is pretty solid. Sorry, Battlecruiser, I guess I should say. The upgrades are pretty standard, I would say, outside of steering gears. Propulsion mod is alright, but the ship is still really slow to accelerate with propulsion mod. It's abysmal. I would much rather be dodging using my rudder and that excellent turning radius. 670 meters is crazy. And with the improved rudder shift, it's pretty difficult to hit. I can always use the engine boost if I'm looking to dodge with my speed, for example. The Cherbourg is really solid. It's a ship that I've had some really good and really bad games as I've determined how aggressive I can play. I've had some games under 20k damage where I've died very early. Playing a little too aggressive, but it's a really good ship, and I think this line could be a lot of fun for those of you that love to flank and enjoy using some armor piercing. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.